Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Sagan and 60. I've got a really interesting week for you this week of some interesting shows. Tonight, Monday, which is the first day of Sexual Health Week, I've got an author, Susan Wides is her name, and it's about a book that she's written called What the Living Do. And it's really a fascinating book about sexuality, about sex, about coming to terms with grief, coming to terms with remorse after the fact. It's a really interesting book, and it's an interesting story, and I think it's a really interesting interview, and I think it's appropriate for Sexual Health Week. And so I encourage you to take a listen. Tuesday, I'm going to talk to Mary Simpson about entrepreneurship. I think that as we're going through, lots of different things in our economy and in our country, we at times forget how critically important the free enterprise system is, capitalism is, and entrepreneurship is, and how entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized businesses are really the lifeblood of our country and of our economy and of our communities. And I think Murray does a really great job of putting it all into perspective. And I come after the interview with him with my own thoughts about entrepreneurship. Wednesday, I want to give a couple of different people some opportunities to talk about their entrepreneurship. And it's got a connection back in sort of with Sexual Health Week, because both of these individuals launched their businesses because of some challenges that they had with relationships and COVID-19 and other issues. And I'll let you tell them the stories. Christine, who launched a jewelry business, and Tamara, Tamara, I apologize, who launched a teeth whitening business. And so that's interesting. And then I'm also going to talk to Louise Mercader about the Tunnel of Glam, which the Young St. Clair BIA is sponsoring, and which launches on Thursday. On Thursday, I've got Michel Neret, and he is just a star at trying to figure out what the core message people have in their life and in their business and in their speeches and in their songs. And we talk about digging deeper, and he's got this dig methodology that he talks about, which is really quite interesting, and I think illuminating as to how we all have to be more curious, less judgmental, as Ted Lasso says, and really think through what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what we need to improve, what our key problems are, what our signature story is. I think it's just a really interesting conversation with Michelle. And then on Friday, I returned to this sort of Sexual Health Week sexuality issue with a really interesting conversation with Kathleen Black and Jane Truitt about their relationship. Jane has been gay, has been in a same-sex relationship or relationships for most of her adult life, but Kathleen hasn't. And Kathleen has been in heterosexual relationships and has recently announced that she's in a same-sex relationship. And both are very impressive young ladies, very successful in business. And I thought this was an interesting topic to address during Sexual Health Week, and when we're focused on sexuality. And we talk about a lot of issues. We talk about misogyny. We talk about prejudice. We talk about diversity and inclusion. We talk about sexuality. We talk about whether gender is fluid, whether sexuality is fluid. It's a really interesting conversation. At least I enjoyed it and learned a lot from it. And so that's on Friday. So Monday, Susan Wides talking about What the Living Do, her book that's about sexuality, sex, grief, grieving, etc. On Tuesday, Mary Simpson talking about entrepreneurship. On Wednesday, two entrepreneurs, Christine Gems and Tamara on whitening, and Louise McCarter talking about the Tunnel of Glam. On Thursday, Michel Neret talking about really trying to figure out what your core message is, what you're all about. And then on Friday, Kathleen Black and Jane Truitt talking about relationships. I think it's going to be an interesting week. I hope you join me to listen to some of my shows. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. on 960 a.m. in Toronto. You can stream me online from anywhere in the world at www.saga960am.ca. I post all my podcasts and videocasts on my website, briancrombie.com. All my podcasts are on numerous different podcast servers, and my videos are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and importantly, YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy Valentine's Day. And I'm off on a trip, so see you later. Let me also, if I could, say a little bit about what what shows I had on last week, because I think I had a really interesting week. On Monday, I had Kelly Harris talk about the Ontario Progressive Conservative Convention. It was really interesting, his conversations about Premier Ford, what he had said, what policy issues did not come up, how positive they were. It was an interesting conversation. David Peterson then talked about his life in politics on Tuesday. Former Premier of Ontario back in the 1980s, a gentleman that I was very honored to be youth chairman for in his leadership campaign. I got to know him real well as we knocked on doors during the 1981 provincial election. And an extremely impressive gentleman, both in politics before and afterwards, as he became a lawyer, general counsel to Castles Brock, and a corporate director and a business person, and very involved in public affairs issues, primarily the Pan Am Games. And then on Wednesday, I had a really interesting conversation with Danica Stanchu, who took 6 months off to volunteer in Kyiv, Ukraine. And it was just, an amazing story about how she gave up her life in Washington, D.C., moved to Kyiv, and got involved in some major issues there. One of the major ones being in retrieving abducted children that had been abducted and taken out of Ukraine by Russia, Russian army, Russian people, and that she joined an organization that was bringing them back. And then she introduced me to an adult now, but was a kid that was abducted. And he told me the story. His name was Rostik, and he told me the story about how he got abducted, where he was sent, what happened to him, and how he didn't tell me how he got back, but that he got back, and now in Washington, D.C., speaking to legislatures in Washington about the issues. On Thursday, I had a really interesting guy, Pascal Chan, who is head of infrastructure transportation for the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, talking about housing and the housing affordability crisis, which I think is, after climate change, probably the number one issue that we're all dealing with, and that lots of people are concerned about and worried about. And then on Friday, I had a whole panel with Christine Singal, Laurel Giacomides, Paul Nadeau, and Christina White, talking about why New Year's resolutions fail. And it was really interesting. All those shows are available as a podcast. You can get on podcast websites. They're available on my website, briancrombie.com, and they're available as videos on YouTube if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, briancrombie.com. So I've got, over 1,500 interviews. I've got over 1,000 shows. I've got a lot of really good content. And it's long form interviews, which I really enjoy doing. I get to know people really well. You get to know them really well. Please check me out if you get a chance. Thanks. Here's going to be our show right now with Susan Wads on What the Living Do.